The Department of Small Business Development is looking at imposing penalties on government departments that fail to pay small businesses within 30 days. In a two-part virtual sit-down interview with SABC News reporter Liabo Setho, Minister Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams says her department is also working on establishing an ombudsman's office that will deal with the problems of the small and medium enterprises sector.
Since the 5th of August, when you first took this position, how has it been trying to juggle things around? How has been your tenure so far?
Well, the first thing, as you correctly put it, that we're juggling things around. The first thing is to get to understand the critical stakeholders in the space that one is involved in. And we spent much time actually trying to engage with the employees, trying to engage with the entire ecosystem, the business forums, the agencies, the unions, because for whatever intervention or whatever directive that we're going to give to the department and those that are meant to be the beneficiaries, we've got to have an appreciation of who do we have and therefore what becomes their thinking so that we can work towards alignment.
What did you find when you got to this particular department? It's relatively new when you compare it to other departments that are there. And one can argue that there's still a lot of work to be done there.
You are correct, because one of the things that I never paid attention to when I was not in this department until I came here was that the transformation of our economy relies on the success of the work that must be done by this department. Not only transformation, but ensuring that we reduce unemployment relies again on the work that we do and coordinate as this department. If you read the National Development Plan, Liabo, it's very clear on what needs to happen by 2030. Right now, we're listening to everything, we're reading, we are seeing all the incidents that are happening in our country. And we firmly believe that with the right resources and the right leadership, we will be able to really change the status quo. And that can never be done by the department alone, which is why I said it was important to understand the entire ecosystem, because our responsibility mainly is just to coordinate all those efforts towards the promotion of small business development. So it is a very critical department. And I know most people tend to think that it's a small department. I always say to those that we work with that we may be a small department in terms of the numbers that we have, but we have a huge responsibility that, as I explained earlier, that of transforming and growing the economy and reducing unemployment, whether through formal businesses or through informal businesses. That task lies with this critical department.
Let me start with some of the great things that this department has done in trying, for instance, facilitating. When you look at the ease of doing business in South Africa, yes, we are not at the level where Mauritius is at, but we are definitely have moved in the sense that one can register a business in a day.
We are really working harder on improving, even though, as you correctly put it, we know that we've done much in terms of addressing the regulatory environment, which in most cases has been a challenge, not only of small businesses to access the services that we provide, but also for big businesses and other investors that would like to leverage on the ecosystem that we have. There has been lots of red tapes on the table, whether through regulatory environment, whether through the infrastructure and other challenges that we have. And this is why we said the first thing that we need to build on is to ensure that we digitize our ecosystem. And this we do because there's so many people that we need to touch. And therefore, we cannot be able, with the existing numbers that we have, we're not going to be able to reach out to all. But at the center of it, we want an investor sitting in whatever country in Italy to sit down and at the clock of or at the tick of his cell phone, one can be able to say, if I am looking at investing in South Africa, let's say in the energy renewable space, therefore, if I want to target this area, which area must I focus on? And what are the potential SMMEs that are there? Because we know the cost of bringing everything from abroad to South Africa, it happens everywhere. And therefore, it's important that also from our side, as we call for everyone to come and leverage on the ecosystem of the SMMEs, but we also make sure that our SMMEs are well capacitated to understand the compliance matters and understand what is it that they have to do in terms of doing business.
You mentioned something interesting when you were answering this question about digitization. You said on the 4AR Commission, what skills are you bringing into this department to help small businesses really get onto the fourth industrial, even fifth industrial revolution that we are currently finding ourselves in?
Well, the first thing is that people take for granted of making sure that you build digital literate ecosystem. And this is one thing that we agreed with the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Dr. Ndabeni, to say we're going to partner with CEDA, and we also agreed with Minister Ndabeni that we're going to partner with NEMISA, which is their Skills Institute, in order to bring a pool of SMMEs, to bring a pool of cooperatives, to provide them with digital skills. As we do that, that's just to enable them to be digital literate, but there are critical components that require them to participate effectively and meaningfully in the economy. As we're talking about that, the first thing is to make sure that SMMEs are not left behind in terms of participation in the digital economy. Who therefore rolls out fiber in the townships and rural areas? So we're saying as the department, we have a program that we are running that talks to township and rural enterprise development. We therefore want to see a number of SMMEs participating in that, not only as consumers of digital technologies. I said our critical task as the department is to transform the economy. And the economy that we are participating in now is a digital economy, which means that we have no choice but to empower and embrace all our SMMEs and cooperatives with the technological advancements to use them. Right now, you hear lots of people at Liabo who are saying, Minister, we have produced this oil, we have produced this moisturizer, but so and so as the retail shop, they are not accommodating us. And the first question I ask as a person who comes from that digital space is to say, what's going to happen if COVID stays with us for 5 years and we're on lockdown 5, level 5? You can't go to the shops. Does it mean that you're going to be out of business? It requires to think afresh and say, how do we innovate? How do we leverage on the devices that we have and exploit the commercial platforms that we have in order to be in business and any other technological advancements that are provided to us?
Let's talk about the challenges that small businesses currently face. I have the pleasure of being in contact with them every single week through SME on Point that is here on the SABC. And one of the biggest problems is the issue of the invoices not being paid within 30 days. We've been speaking about this for many years, Minister, and we've also seen businesses really close their doors, jobs being lost simply because of the inefficiencies of the government. What is your department doing differently to make sure that people get paid on time, businesses do not get to close their doors? The Western Cape is doing it very well. How are you doing it?
Well, the first thing that we have been doing was to trace through Treasury to say who's the culprit that does not pay. But one of the things that we have learned, Liabo, as much as we say government does not pay on time, one of the things that we have learned is that also when SMMEs at times submit their invoices, they do not provide full information. This also finds expression in the applications for the funds that we have, wherein, although we have set out the criterion, people are looking at the forms and everything, but they do not provide complete information. So that enables whoever that is supposed to process on time. That's one. As I said, government on the other side, yes, there are those that are not compliant. But at the same time, we also have SMMEs, which is why we said through CEDA, we've got to sit down and engage small businesses in terms of compliance. When you are providing a service, what are the requirements? What is expected of you? And therefore you do that. And now coming to government, as they fail to do what has been approved. The first thing that we said, we really need to make sure that fines expression through the performance agreements of all the DGs and therefore the CFOs and everybody else. Because once they know that they don't meet the targets and it is them at fault, they should be penalized through their performance. The second thing that we're doing is we are establishing an ombuds office wherein all the complaints by the SMMEs will be channeled, and that must therefore find an expression in terms of penalizing those that are culprits. I'm even considering to say, we've got to say if government fails to pay in 30 days, we add interest of 5%, because that means that the small business should be down to go and borrow from this one. They're inconveniencing the suppliers and everyone, and that destroys the small businesses. And therefore, if government does not take that serious, therefore we've got to penalize it and add certain interest so that they know, or we know as government, that if we had budgeted 50,000 rand, we're going to spend 60,000 rand only because we've failed to comply with that has been agreed upon. Unfortunately, we have to comply with all those protocols that are defined within the law. But as for government, as President Ramaphosa has hammered on this several times, that we cannot postpone this. This is what has to be done immediately. We are going to the Lekgotla next year in January when we come back from holidays, and it's the same messaging that we'll give, which will therefore give rise to the amendment of the performance agreements with the accounting officers to say, let that find expression there. We also engage in the Department of National Treasury, who is the one that is monitoring all of that.